It is Wednesday. Hump Day is back, July 8th, and I'm here with Sara Haines. Hello, Sara.
Hi, Brian.
The cherry on top of our proverbial Sunday. Welcome back.
Hey.
All right, so you were out Monday, much
Yes.
like half the table.
I know.
You were the final straw. Talk about the cherry on top of my vacation.
Oh, my God.
So, Whoopi in the volcano, and then Anna Navarro in the plane, and then I wake up to a text from you saying my basement is caving in, and I will not be at work. Tell me what happened.
Well, so what happened is we thought we felt the AC go off because those days over the weekend, it was hitting like 90-some degrees.
The whole week was crazy in New York.
Max went down to like check on something, and he's like, oh, my gosh, there's water. And I went down, and the ceiling was like falling off. And we had this happen like around December, Sandra's birthday, because we had girls coming over, and I said, we'll do the movie in the basement. Max is like, do you remember there are professional air? And I was like, oh, our basement's out. So this time around, kind of the same thing happened. There's an elbow piece our builder used that is known to be corroded at times. And once there is corrosion, it can pop off. So last time it was our water heater. This time it was just a water pipe. But the damage was like 3 times as bad. They cut out, it's not our whole basement. It's a whole corner of our basement. And they had to cut it out. We have professional air cleaners. But the bigger problem here is they kind of raised this to us. This has happened twice in 6 months. These pieces are used throughout your house.
Oh, no.
So now we're in that intermediary time where it's like, do we proactively go and find all these pieces to get ahead of it?
Right.
Or do we keep waiting till it happens?
Right.
Because it's expensive damage, but we have homeowners insurance. So it's like, do we preemptively go after it? Or, so even though we're okay and we're going to survive and not a lot was wrecked that can't be fixed, it is still like, not very hopeful.
Also slightly corroded and known to pop off Joy Behar.
Also,
Yes.
good point. She rusts out a little.
Yeah, she's
and
not
then
going to
just
like
pops.
that.
Yeah.
That'll probably have to come out, but I enjoyed it. So I honestly at first, I was really like, are you kidding me? I apologize if I wasn't immediately, sympathetic because my head immediately goes to, I've got 2 people at the table now. This is crazy. The only people that were supposed to be here that were on that show were Alyssa and Sunny.
Well, my natural reaction was to panic, not only to miss work, but when you told me, oh my gosh, we're already down too.
Yeah.
I sat there and I started to say, you're like, could you come a little later? And I'm thinking, okay, well, we have no water, no AC. I can't shower, can't brush my teeth. But more importantly, I thought, if I come here and I know there's still water actively running down my basement.
No, it was a disaster.
I was like,
You couldn't be here.
I won't be. And then, by the way, because of the storm damage, our kids go during the day to a camp. The camp was shut down.
Sure.
So I'm like, we have kids home, no AC, no water. I was like, this is like, what is happening?
It all worked out, but
Yeah.
man, it was
Brutal.
Quite the way to return from vacation.
Yeah.
Now, today on the show, and we've had some interesting shows this week, some good
Yeah.
ones, I think. Today on the show, we had a day of hot topics. Everyone loves a day of hot topics.
Yep.
How do you feel about a day of hot topics?
So it depends. Like when you have a lot of fun not fun, but you have topics that are going to be meaty to kind of talk about, push back,
Yes.
disagree, then it's great. There are days where it's a day of hot topics and we're all like, we have to rely on news cycles and like
Right.
what's happening.
So we never know what it's going to be.
So there are days where I look at it. I was just having this conversation with Summer, our producer. I was like, there are days where I'm like, oh gosh, how are we going to have 4? Today it was a day where it was good topics.
Yeah, I thought so too.
Yeah.
We led off talking about Senator Mitch McConnell's
Yeah.
health and trying to figure out what's going on there because he was rushed to the hospital 3 weeks ago. He hasn't been seen since. We're hearing from people that say they had conversations with him, but to the point that was made on the show, there seems to be a little bit of a lack of transparency going on, which is something you've been really outspoken about, talking about how important you feel like transparency is with health, with politics.
Yeah. Well, first and foremost, I always like the human response. You hear someone's not well, and I immediately go to how I'd feel if it were my dad or
of
my
course, and you want to be
sibling.
sympathetic,
Like,
whether you like his politics or not.
it doesn't even matter.
he's a
You're just
human
like,
being.
this family's hurting right now, and this could be. I'm not saying this, but like maybe with every day you're closer to the end. That's heartbreaking, and so that's where my heart goes. But as a citizen and a voter, it always frustrates me, the cocoon of the silo of privacy that they put around these elected officials, whether they're presidents like President Biden or President Trump or Senator McConnell and Senator Feinstein. Or, is it Feinstein?
Feinstein.
It is Feinstein. Okay, and I know she's passed, but in California, there were votes she was missing. It frustrates me that we keep seeing people, and this sounds so brutal, but like die in office,
Yeah.
whether it's a Supreme Court justice or these senators that stay until their very last day for two reasons. One, and I often said this about President Biden, when you've been a public servant your whole life, a part of me says, if I were related to this person, I'd be like, give us some time. Like,
Right.
give us some years, give us some of, we deserve it if we're close to you. The second part is for the American people, it's just not fair because the parties start to surround these people because it's all about then the jersey and the math. Are we going to lose a seat? Are we not? That is partisan over people because when people go to the polls to vote, they need to have as much information as possible. And if you're looking at health issues that could change the way they look at the term length or the likelihood that they won't make it through their term, whatever it is, if the voter should have all the information.
Transparency seems to be the thing you can't find anymore, and the most important thing in the world. It's in a time where I feel like what is objective truth is something that people are just desperate for all the time. I agree with you. I think sunlight is the best disinfectant.
Yeah.
What you don't want to do is fall party to ageism, and I think the point Alyssa was trying to make as everyone.
Joy biatched her. Well, because it's not always age.
It's not always age. That was the point Alyssa was making. Like, look at Joy, who's so sharp and has, is one of the most essential parts of the View at an age that, we'll say at 83 years old. And she is, sharp as a tack and fantastic. And there are not a lot of 83-year-olds that can do what Joy Behar can do.
Yes.
So it's not about the age; it's about the person.
Well, and the likelihood increases with age because he's had Mitch McConnell's had 3 scares this year involving a fall. Then there was a pneumonia, I think a hospitalization, and then now. So it increases the likelihood that they're going to miss time, and so that's inevitable with age. It doesn't mean everyone at the same age it happens, but you also have the Senator Fettermans, and I'm forgetting on the guy's name this week, that it just was announced he had a mental health crisis and he had disappeared. So it's not always an age-related problem.
No.
It does increase with age, which is why there is a conversation to have. But the problem with that conversation is I don't know where the solution lies because it's not unique to a number. It's cognitive and physical because if you can't physically sustain the demands of especially the office of president, that's important.
Sure.
But you also watch C-SPAN and you see some of our senators that are close to 90 or above 90 falling asleep in hearings.
Well,
I don't want that either.
There's a constitutional requirement for a president to have achieved a certain age to be elected in.
Yes.
So it's, that says something.
Well, that's what bothers me, though, about Supreme Court justices. The whole idea of tenure, I don't have the answer here, so I don't even have this, let me throw out this solution. But Supreme Court justices literally direct the flow of the future through their decisions and opinions. And therefore, cognitive abilities are deeply important.
Yes.
Who knows that? And that doesn't happen at a certain age. It could happen at different places. But the fact that there's really not a lot of choices for that bothers me as well. I don't think people should be forced to hold that spot until they die in office, die in service.
Without caffeine today, my cognitive abilities are really on the.
I was about to say no one should also executive produce daytime TV without coffee.
Without a couple cups of coffee. The person you referenced before was New Jersey Representative Tom Keene, who disappeared.
Yes, he disappeared. Yeah. And the difficulty, though, there's a slight nuance with mental health. And the point I'll make here is sometimes when you're struggling in mental health, you don't have words for it. So if you break your ankle or you have a stroke or a heart attack, there are numbers. Doctors can tell you what just happened. With mental health, sometimes you can be in the throes of a struggle. You know things are bad, but you don't have the words to wrap around it. So I do give people a runway for figuring out what's going on. But once you have that information, there should not be people protecting around you just to
maintain
keep
power.
the party, party protected.
Well, speaking of which, this leads right into the other topic we've been talking about this week, which is Maine Democratic Senate candidate Graham Plattner. So this is a conversation that we've had for weeks now about whether the end result basically justifies the sacrifice you have to make in judging people's character, because there are a lot of accusations, which he is denied.
Yep.
the larger conversation seems to be, are voters willing to turn a blind eye to someone who has now been accused of sexual assault? Which, I mean, I think everyone at our table is saying, like, this man needs to move
Yeah.
on. Yesterday, you said if you're one of those people that can plug their nose, you're the problem.
So I believe that so firmly, which is why I'm independent. And I
Right.
say that over and over, not to remind people, but I don't want party jerseys. I
Right.
want quality. Show me quality, and that's where I'll vote. If you have a party that you're affiliated with, the plus in this system is that you are open to certain primaries. You're not able to in all states if you're an
Right.
independent. But that aside, I never want to compromise the character of the person I'm looking at or putting my vote behind based on, well, we need this number. That's like the whole problem with President Trump and the people that have been critics, including myself, of who he is, was when did we think the day would come when you couldn't let your kids, like, I know people give me a hard time about this, but we turn off the news at times with some of the words being said on the news. It is not the days of evening news that it used to be where you could sit as a family and watch it. The way politics has gone so down in the gutter, President Trump is just no one someone would say, yeah, I want my kids to study that example. Even if you support him, you're not like, this is the example you should be in life. Like, it's just not. And there was a time where our politicians were held to a higher standard, especially our presidents. And so I believe that I will forever fight for the character of the individual. I've spoken about people that were Republicans, such as like a Charlie Baker, I know he's passed, but he was Massachusetts governor who lost in a deep blue state and then went on to interview all the people for a year to say, what did I not hear? And then he won and was one of the most popular governors in the country as a Republican. I could vote for that.
Right.
I remember when I liked, now Sanu News changed a little bit, but he was a Republican. I liked him. There's a lot of these centrist Democrats that I'm like, but I like them. So it doesn't matter the letter. To me, it's really the integrity of the candidate. And when people say, well, we just don't have that anymore, I refuse to let that be the standard of the people I'm passing on to guide a country my children will live in.
So here's the thing. And before we move on too far from it, I get just to say Plattner does deny the sexual assault allegation, if I didn't say that before.
But that wasn't my off ramp.
No, it wasn't. Well, here's my question, because I think people have this feeling of like, well, that's short-sighted. And this is the devil's advocate, the other side of this, that, look at where we end up when we don't make some of these concessions.
Yeah.
Now, you were out front talking about the fact that President Biden needed to step down after the debate. My question is, knowing now that Donald Trump was going to win the election, would you say that again if you thought that Biden could? Would you rather, because other people on the show said, I'd rather have Joe Biden in a coma than have Donald Trump as the president. I mean, that's the tough question, I think.
It is the tough question. The difference is President Biden's condition for me was physical and mental, and I was concerned of his stamina for 4 more years. It was not a character flaw.
Right.
That's the difference.
Oh, that
here.
is interesting. So you're saying you have an easier time.
I can digest more when it's the
70% of Joe Biden versus.
Yes, that's the problem here, is that when Graham Plattner had his Totenkopf Nazi symbol tattoo that 2 ex-girlfriends have said he used to not only knew what it meant, he'd brag about it.
He denies that, of course.
He denies that, but that has been reported. And then also him mocking a fellow service member who took fire purposely to save his team and got a Purple Heart as a result. He mocked him, saying it's because the Taliban has bad aim that he's alive today.
Right.
If you can utter those words in your worst moment of life, you're off the table for me. Go grow, and I give you grace to be a different person in life, but you are not someone that should be elected to public service in a nation that reveres our military. So there's just so much wrong with this man that it's really that saying everyone might have a different off point. It's kind of like, let's flip the table to President Trump and some of his supporters. When you talk to them, there are lots of people like, we're not supporters at our table, but that would say the second he did this, I was like out, But then there were people along the way. Alyssa left his administration at a certain point. And for her, it was, I think, the election denying, And then you had people that January 6th were like, I can't do this. For me, I had a gut reaction to Graham Plattner and the things he had done. and it's independent, and it's up to the Maine voters to decide what they could stomach.
Right.
And so,
But you kind of feel the same way in that respect, then, that like if you're okay with this, then that's on
well,
you.
I deeply do believe if you don't like the systems we live in, we have to change them. And I have criticisms of that because I think our primaries gear this country towards extreme candidates like Graham Plattner.
Clearly.
But I do think so. Whenever you say it, you have to disclaim this is up to Maine. But as an individual voter, if I'm putting myself in their shoes, he was off the table.
Got it. Why do you think it is? I'm getting to like my Barbara Walters thing. Why do you think it is that the fact that you are an independent and talk about being an independent is triggering for a lot of people? It's kind of shocking because, I read comments and I see a lot of this stuff and it really seems to bother people. And it feels like it's such an innocuous thing to me.
It is innocuous because I would argue that without a label on it, I probably align with a lot of people in this country. It's kind of a common sense, pragmatic approach.
Right.
For me, it's in the principle that I stay independent because I am tired of the power of the jersey wearing the parties. I think the country's gotten so extremely partisan, and when you only have two options and they're both racing right and left and then meeting sometimes in really tragic, awful, shared common things.
It seems like people doubt the authenticity of people that say they're independent, that they're secretly something else and just don't want to put a label on it.
Well, because the bottom line is even independents have a voting record, and they're rarely like, this year I voted left and then this year I voted right. It's usually issue to issue.
Yes.
Or for me, quality of candidate.
Right.
And I often want to listen to the person that inspires me, and that I trust in a time of trouble. But I think because people have to put you in boxes, and that happens in all areas of our lives. When you meet someone that's you're trying to figure out like who they date.
Yes.
You're like, well, I have to know right now, is this person date men or women? You're like, why do you have to know that? You can ask yourself that. Like, why do we always have to put people in
Label
boxes?
and everything.
It doesn't make sense because what they want to know is what's your inclination.
Right.
And I've always said I'm an independent. I've voted left most of the time. But my beliefs, I have beliefs that span the spectrum.
Right. No, it's very interesting. I just, people's reaction to it seems like such a normal thing for me. I have a lot of people in my life that don't identify with either party.
Yeah.
But
People need
I guess
to know.
politically active people tend to pick a party and the other, and you are someone who's politically aware, and maybe that's why people have trouble with
It's
it.
kind of me at times flipping my finger off to the very limited political system we have. It has worked historically. I think over time, it's evolved into something that has lost the plot of the story, which was the American people. And we're talking about it in every topic now. We're talking about the lack of transparency because people are holding on to a seat. We talk about the way a justice will die in office or not gauge it.
Right.
People will pressure people to leave their jobs so this administration can name this. There was a time where it wasn't this divided. Supreme Court justices used to go in almost all the time on bipartisan votes.
Right.
Now it goes party line down to the number. And that's just like that's not a critical thinker to me.
Right. Well, Amy Coney Barrett's going back and forth a little bit, but yes.
She's been the one not that I agree with her choice, but I think she's the one that's shown us she's willing to critically think and make decisions based on something.
Even if they aren't decisions you'd agree with.
Even if they aren't decisions, it's the process for me.
All right. Speaking of America, ABC News did this 24-hour special last week on July 4th. It was really, for America 250, it was really a Herculean effort and so impressive what they accomplished. People who work in this building did not get a vacation, did not get a break, and did a tremendous job. You did a tape piece for this and a live shot on July 4th. You returned to your home state of Iowa to examine the history of family-run farms that have been such an integral part of American history. Tell me about it.
Well, first, before I get to my Iowa part, I want to commend the team that did all this work for months and months and months. The ultimate product, all I've read is people saying this is some of the best television I've seen in years.
Yeah.
Because to me, it was celebratory, it was uplifting, it was unifying, and it was informative. And you learned a lot. So I'm so grateful to have played a very small part of something that was so magnificent. I even wrote David Muir at one point and said, this was just like stop you in your tracks, amazing television. So for all the producers, all the people arranging it, it was just hands down phenomenal.
I was on the edge of a lot of those meetings and just in awe of the people that were putting
to
it
see
together.
what they pull. It just the team, it made me very proud
Yeah.
to be a part of this company and this team. But the Iowa part was special because this was the first time I was my pride in my state was it's my state. It's my the hat I wear, my identity. I come from there. It always felt like that's home. So I just loved it.
No jersey, but a hat.
A hat. We're not in a jersey, but we're in a hat unless it's a Hawkeye jersey. But to go back for the first time and look at it, step back and look at it through the role it played in birthing this nation was just a different lens. So growing up, like I lived in a town, I wasn't on a farm, but to me, the farm kids were bussed in. When I say farm kids, they were a lot of my friends, but kids came in on buses from the rural areas. What I learned in really digging deep was the town was the outskirt. The farm was the center. Everything about towns born across this country was around the agriculture. And so it just really shifted my perspective of the role these hardworking, tenacious, family, like driven, it was almost biblical what they put into the land and their legacy and the people and the love of the animals. And even when I joked about, I've heard this saying before, but I joked about the smelly job that it is because you're walking literally through. Someone was like, to a farm girl, that smells like money. And I thought, I've heard that for years, but it always makes me laugh. It just changes the way you look at everything.
I've never heard that. But
Yes.
there we go.
Gotta come
Different
to Iowa.
upbringings. Yeah.
But and these two families from a legacy farm family, which I just talked about this with my dad because my parents were blown away by the piece. They didn't even know this family. This family's, it's a small town. We had people connecting us. I was in awe of this family. I'm kind of smitten in love and will never lose touch with the Poots family. This first generation farm family out of Des Moines, they were the Claysons. They were this young, like vitalized couple that had worked on co-ops and farms that were only able to afford it because of some of the incentives the state is taking to keep the grounds sustainable, which knocks out big, massive corporations buying it because they don't want to keep it sustainable or organic. But now families can come in and make it that way. And this land into eternity will be a sustainable land. But that only inspires individual families to get them. So I wrote Max. I was like, I kind of want to buy a farm. Like, he laughed. He was like, are you serious? And then I FaceTimed Alec to show him the family I was with. And he's like, no, Mom, I'm not a farm guy. And I was like, how do you know if you're a farm guy? Whatever. But
Feels like a lot of chores.
a lot of chores. And they don't get a day off. Like one of the things we were talking, I said, how does this day pull off when you don't have a lot of, neither family has really people that come in. And they're like, there have been days where one of us is really sick and we have to stay in bed and you just kind of pull weight. You sometimes are calling on neighbors. And I thought, this is literally the definition of a life. It's bigger than a job. It's a lifestyle.
Yeah, I think absolutely. And it's hard to be a farmer in 2026.
It's so hard. But it just was so, I came back floating and for weeks I've been riding on the high of just knowing these people exist, the lives they lead, how different it is to mine, and just how proud I am, whether they're in Iowa or elsewhere, to see these families dedicated to the land just feels like a time hop.
Well, you can find this on YouTube
Yes.
still, which is great,
And on
Disney
Hulu,
Plus and
yeah.
Hulu. And also, Whoopi did an incredible thing with the Statue of Liberty, and where she talked about the Statue of Liberty as like drones and fireworks and lights were going off. And then Sonny did a piece on Puerto Rico, and then Whoopi also did a piece on the Golden Age of movies. So I recommend everybody check it out. It's really
It's
cool.
something that you can sit down with your family and watch in chunks or sit and watch for hours on end. It's kind of must-see TV.
Absolutely. All right, there's a topic I have to go through here with you. There's a topic on the list today that I think you can relate to. Let me find out. It's called, is an article about something called quiet cracking. And it's the subtle warning signs of a struggling parent. You're a wonderful parent. I want to say that. That being said, I've seen you crack once or twice. The warning signs are, here we go. A, you stop finding joy in the things you used to enjoy.
Okay.
B, you're constantly snappy, which often leads to guilt and shame.
That's 100%.
C, you're functioning, but feel disconnected from daily tasks.
Okay, so the first one, not finding joy, I would say that's not across the boards, but I would argue cracking comes in moments and chapters and layers because right now, I would argue I've been cracking for a while. Every parent knows you go through different spells where right now when you're not achieving what you want, when things are not working out and you're yelling all the time and you're irritable, a part of you has such shame and guilt for like the job you're not getting done.
Yes.
And the memories and the time you're losing with kids. And last night I was putting Alec to bed and I'm staring at him and he's on a bunk bed and he's reading. And I just keep looking at him. And in my head, I'm looking at him and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, this is my little boy. He's 10. We have a lot of issues with him when he gets mad right now. Like we're dealing with regulation, like mood regulation and stuff. And
I have that with my wife.
well, he always says, Mom, you do the same thing. And I'm like, okay. So, but I'm looking at him and finally he looks, he goes, Mom, what are you looking at? And I was like, I just worry sometimes that I'm failing you.
Oh.
That's going to be, we go. But he said, what do you mean? And I was like, when your papa and I can't land a discipline or get you through something or over a hurdle, and I don't mean do it for him, I mean guide him through it. At the end of the day, I look at, he's a 10-year-old, like, and my daughter's 8 and my other son's 6, and like they're children and they're innocent. And I still respond sometimes like I'm the kid. So there are days I look at them and I'm like, I never did this to my parents. Like, you guys need to get along. And I scream things. And then I stop and I'm like, wait, my parents achieved it. I'm just not. And so I know it's not forever, but I keep picking it on the list because I'm like, hey, anybody else cracking? Because I'm cracking over here. But it does go.
You are very much too hard on yourself. You're a wonderful mother. And
thank you.
I mean, I've seen you with your kids.
Thank you very much.
And I've talked to you about you think about them all the time.
I do. And I deeply love them, but you also blink your eye and they're 5 and then they're 10 and then
it goes fast.
It goes fast and you're like, I'm on the clock at all times. Like, am I doing everything I can to at least give them a shot? Because this isn't stuff like the challenges in their life, their heartbreak or a test they don't do well. And I'm not talking about that stuff. I'm talking, am I guiding them in a way that lets them be the kid and have all the emotions they're going to have and I can stay steady like a rock? How am I doing on that part, So it's just like an ebb and flow. And I hear people say it all the time. I think I've just been in a lull lately because I think about it all day and then I come home and I find that I'm snapping 2 minutes in.
Sure. No, and I see that. I do that. My wife does that.
Yeah.
I mean, because they're kids are annoying and they're frustrating,
annoying.
And especially as they get older.
Yeah.
I mean, I am very blessed. My daughters are great.
They are.
But they're 14 and 12, about to be 15 and 14 and 11, about to be 15 and 12. And those are tough ages. And
for 1,000 reasons.
Yeah.
But the good part is you guys have set, like, anyone watching can already see where these kids are headed and going, and they're amazing. So I know it's a lot.
Yeah, but they're also sassy, and I get the occasional eye roll, and
that's a survival technique.
Yeah,
like that will make them strong in the world. That's what I try to remind myself when things get really hard. Is I stop, and someone else will say, "But that's them advocating for themselves," and I'm like, you only can see it through the lens of what you dealt with. So even if you want to change things or keep certain things, the only lens you can look at is the experience you've already had, because this is your first time as a parent. So every step you're like, why were my parents so much better at this? Why do I suck at this?
Well, the only thing I would say for you and for other people struggling with this, and I try to say it to my wife and to me, is cut yourself some slack.
Yeah.
Give yourself a break sometimes, because it is really hard and you're doing the best you can.
Yeah.
That's me.
Thank you, Brian.
No problem.
Are you going to charge me for this session?
I
or
might.
are we good?
The tissues are missing.
That's
I don't
okay.
know why.
That's
They're
okay.
supposed to be on. I'm being told they're on your left, but I don't see them.
Right when I started to cry, I literally thought, "Oh, we just notched another one on
Here we go. We gotta,
the chart. We got to get."
I'm putting notches in the side.
I
of the,
know you're going to feel
thing here.
guilty the day you're like, "That's another
They're
one
on
on
the
the
black
yes."
table. They said.
It's okay. We're almost done.
Oh, over there. All right. Yeah. No. Every time you cry, I put a little notch in the side here.
No, I
then,
know that explains these belts. I thought it was
We
just
switched
like
tables. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's good. All right. Thank you for joining me today, Sarah. I'm sorry to bring you to tears.
Thank you, Brian.
Tomorrow, I'll be back with Anna Navarro, which is great because I need a rest. And we'll see you then.